We have one block that the water goes to the end.
Right.
My prediction by this summer, we'll have at least 25 blocks closed. What can you do as public advocate to take this mayor on to make sure sand replenishment is done now, the day you get in,
Absolutely.
not wait until the summer is over with?
Great question. I'm looking for John Corey. I saw him before. John Corey warned you. John was and is the tip of the spear on this issue. And I'm glad you brought this up, Lou, because at the next stated meeting, don't worry about what I'm doing as the next public advocate. As a member of the City Council, a bill is being introduced that we're going to have a lot of co-sponsors on that will require the Parks Department to give notification to the community well in advance of any closures, especially when they know in advance that erosion is an issue on a particular beach. And that was an issue going back to when Phil and I were working together when he was in the Assembly, when Parks Department would just spring things on us at the last minute and then hope that people, would go away or that the protests would die down. This is a way of life for the people in the community, but more importantly, it's also for our protection. And if the City of New York and the Army Corps of Engineers are working together in secret and they know that they're going to be making decisions well in advance, well, then we need to know those decisions as well, because we have businesses that are relying on the beaches being open. The local economy is dependent on the beach season, but the local residents who live in this community and who want to feel safe in their homes and in their apartments, they also need to be kept in the loop. So that is a bill that will be going in 2 weeks. And the Parks Department, we have not been easy on the Parks Department, and not the local administrators. We've been very lucky with Portia and Joe. Joe Weber and others. We've been very, very fortunate, but there's going to be a change in leadership at the borough level. We want to make sure that we keep those lines of communication open, but that they respect this community, that this is not a concession that they have like in some other park and some other part of the city. This directly impacts this community, and we need to be in the loop. Hello, doctor?
How are you?
Good.
Okay, so a number of schools in District 27, which serves Rockaway, Howard Beach, Ozone Park, Woodhaven, and Southern Queens, suffer from overcrowding, which has been the truth for a very long time. Poor achievement scores or safety concerns. How can the public advocates assist parents and teachers in improving these conditions?
So, first of all, thank you for your service. I had the pleasure of working with you when you were the president of the CEC, and we attended many meetings together, and I thought you did a terrific job, so thank you very much. And you didn't get paid. I get paid to do my job. You don't. And you would volunteer your time, take time away from your family to be there on many long nights, meeting with parents, principals to discuss these issues. Okay. On the issue of school overcrowding, this absolutely was an issue that was much worse, I would say, 6 or 7 years ago. Since then, in District 27, we've opened 2 new schools. Actually, both of them happen to be in Ozone Park. There's one on Albert Road, right off the Bell Parkway, PS 377, and we work very closely on the planning and the design of that building. And the other school's on 101st Avenue, where St. Stanislaus used to be, a former Catholic school. The city purchased that property and built a K-5 school there as well. What we insisted in those areas is that they also incorporate space for District 75 students, for children with special needs, and that they have an integrated space and they not be sectioned off in a wing of the building or feel like we're institutionalizing those children in any way. We want them, the ones that are able to be highly functioning and learn in that environment, to be part of the overall school community and share that building with the students who are able to learn, in a regular classroom, so to speak. So we have 2 new schools. We've also expanded schools. What I think the area that needs the most attention is high schools. We need more options for high schools, okay? And sometimes the local options for high school, if your student or child is not an accelerated learner and able to get into Scholars Academy or Brooklyn Tech, and you don't have the money to send them to a Catholic school or a private school, that sometimes, you have no choice but to send them to one of the other schools in the district where the scores are not that high. I believe that we have a moral and a legal obligation as a city and as stakeholders, elected officials, to raise the standards in every school. I'm not for leaving any student behind or any school behind. I don't think there should be any failing schools. And quite frankly, I think that some of the things that Mayor de Blasio has done with respect to the Department of Education has made it a very top-down heavy bureaucracy that has hindered a lot of the innovation and the programming and the curriculum development that the principals and the local superintendents used to be able to do on their own, now they're taking more direction from Tweed downtown. I think that is stifling a lot of progress that we were able to make. We've made significant gains in our school system with respect to graduation rates at the high school level citywide and also region scores, but we have not taken it far enough. And there is no child and no student that should be trapped in a failing school in any part of the city. If they're in a failing school, that failure is our fault, not the fault of the children. And no one has accepted responsibility for that. And the one thing that we have, because of mayoral control, is the mayor is accountable for the successes or failures of the public schools. Since 2002, that's what Mayor Bloomberg was able to get from the state legislature. It's going to be renewed by Albany. We're very happy about that, but we have to hold the mayor's feet to the fire, especially at the high school and middle school level, where if the principals, are not able to get the schools in the shape that they need to be in, we got to stop blaming the teachers, we got to stop blaming the kids, and we got to get the right leadership in these buildings so that we can turn the schools around and give these kids the education that they deserve. So, thank you. Phil Goldfeder, my man here. This is
So public service is an honor and a privilege, and nobody knows that better than me because I enjoy it every second of the time I spend in office. But it is also very, very hard work for those who do it the right way. And I'm going to tell you all just a very, very quick story in that Hurricane Sandy hit on October 29th of 2012. And literally, I know Eric has a 6-year-old daughter, but literally 3 days later, he had a beautiful baby girl. And yet we had a meeting in Broad Channel where there was residents from Rockaway, from Howard Beach that came together to get answers. And Eric was literally there standing side by side. While his wife and his family needed him, he also knew that his community needed him, and he was there. And so I can tell you that I have a lot of friends who are in this race, but I worked hand in hand with Councilman Ulrich for 5 years, and even before I was actually elected, for years before that. And I can tell you that he is a hardworking, dedicated, enthusiastic public servant who has already proved himself and given his whole life for this community, and I can tell you, I know that whatever happens in the future, he's going to do a great, great job.
Thank you.
I just want to say that and say that, obviously there was some the mayor kind of took some interesting action at the Office of Emergency Management. Talking about Hurricane Sandy, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the future of the Office of Emergency Management and how you think, we are more prepared today than we were before this.
So I'll pay you later for that endorsement. Thank you. Well, Phil didn't tell you was I drove him nuts when he first ran for assembly. But after Sandy, before Sandy, we became very good friends. And I always supported Phil. I always crossed party lines. I vote for the person who I think is going to do the best job. Yes, I'm a moderate Republican. I'm not a Tea Party Republican. I'm not an alt-right Republican. I'm the furthest that you could get away from that. But I'm for common sense. And when I see that there are Democrats who are in office who are working hard, doing a great job for their constituents, I'm going to support them. I'm going to work with them. And Phil and I worked very closely together, and I miss him. I'm hoping maybe he comes back one day and does something, and then I'll have Republicans for Goldfeder the same way he had Democrats for Ulrich. But he asked about OEM. So the Office of Emergency Management, I think, got their gold star, if you will, after 9/11. They did a terrific job helping the city recover from the most devastating attack we've ever had. And, that office has seen some changes over the years. But probably one of the few bright spots in the de Blasio administration is the Commissioner of OEM, Joe Esposito, who is the chief of the police department, a decorated police officer, someone who has done an amazing job and respected by people all across this city over 4 different mayoral administrations. When I saw in the paper that Mayor de Blasio, first of all, Mayor de Blasio didn't fire him, he had someone else fire him, and I think that was a disgrace. I think they said the mayor was out of town, another shocker. The point is that the people that work for you, if you want them to be loyal to you and work hard for you and to do a good job, they have to believe that you have their back. And I think that there are a lot of commissioners in the city who, quite frankly, off the record will tell you, that they feel like City Hall doesn't always have their back with different decisions that the administration makes or difficult things that they have to go in and do in a particular community. So I think when the mayor saw the backlash that the public outcry after Joe Esposito's apparent firing, that now he's been brought back on board. I'm hoping he sticks around because he's one of the few competent people that Bill de Blasio has. This is not some political hack or somebody that doesn't know what they're talking about. This is somebody who actually has served this city and dedicated his life to the safety and the security of the people of the city of New York. I can't think of a more qualified person to be in that position than Joe Esposito. And for him to get the boot the way he did, I think was a disgrace. But it's something that I'm not surprised about, to be honest with you. So I'm a big fan of Joe Esposito. I happen to like him a lot.
Don't you think we're better off?
Not now,
If the
not
mayor
now,
is
not
out
now,
of town?
not now.
Phil will laugh on that one. So in regards to housing, as public advocate has been known for issuing an annual list of worst landlords, which
Yep.
we all love. As you know, there's a lot of issues with NYCHA developments in Rockaway, but everywhere else as well, and private-owned developments such as Surfside or Bay Towers. As public advocate, how can we count on you to help support this and to continue the fight?
Well, this is where I really want to tip my hat to Tish James, because she was the only one that had the courage to put the number one person, the number one worst landlord in the city of New York. She put NYCHA. And she's absolutely right. The biggest slumlord in the city of New York, according to Tish James, and I think everybody that has common sense, is NYCHA. The fact that we just came out of last weekend where we had single-digit temperatures and 26,000 residents of NYCHA in the Bushwick houses, in the Sotomayor houses in the Bronx, and in the housing development in Manhattan had no heat, no hot water, no running water in many of those units, is a disgrace. There is no excuse for that. There is no amount of red tape. There is no amount of bureaucratic mumbo-jumbo that you can blame on that. That is something that the city has control over, that we can file emergency contract purchase orders, that we can hire private companies if we need to. There is no reason, there is no good reason for that to exist and for those families and those residents to live under those conditions. Not to mention the fact that so many NYCHA buildings, even after the whole lead paint scandals in the 90s and all of the investigations that occurred as a result of various investigations uncovered, that we're finding lead poisoning in water in some NYCHA apartments. This is unheard of. This is stuff that we see on television. We think it only happens in Flint, Michigan. It's happening here in the city of New York, and the mayor's getting a pass on it. It's disgraceful. And so if we had a public advocate, right now we have an acting public advocate. Tish James is no longer the public advocate because she's the Attorney General. But if we had a public advocate that would stand shoulder to shoulder with the residents of NYCHA and call out the mayor when he's wrong on an issue like this and say, we are not leaving until the work crews get here, until the boiler is replaced, until the water is turned on and it's safe, and until these families are safe and warm in their own homes, we have a legal and a moral obligation to afford them proper housing and proper shelter in exchange for the money that they pay in rent, which in some cases is a lot higher than you would think it is. Some people think that the people who live in public housing, that they're not paying enough for rent. They're paying over $1,000 to live in apartments, in some instances with no heat, no running water, no hot water, and with rodent or bug infestation. There's no excuse for it. It has to stop. And the media, quite frankly, there are some days when they're tough on the mayor, and other days they're reporting on sales and Macy's and other things going on in the city. I don't quite get it. I happen to believe that if this was any other administration, that they would not be able to get away with the things that Mayor de Blasio has been able to get away with. And I'm very disappointed as a New Yorker and as a taxpayer to see the mayor get a slap on the wrist when we have a crisis like this existing in our NYCHA for those families, in our NYCHA buildings. Thank you.